Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the X Podcast. I'm Brenda Rigney, your host, and today I have on Jillian Murphy. Hey, Jillian, how are you doing today?
Hey, Brenda, I'm so excited to be on your show. One, I'm such a fan of you, I'm a fan of your show, and I'm grateful to be here today with you and your audience.
Oh, I'm so grateful to have you here too. So everyone knows Jillian's a sales coach by trade. She's actually my sales coach as well, and she coaches tons of entrepreneurs out there on helping them develop their sales process. She's had a background in corporate sales, and now she has her own business, and she works with like all these fabulous entrepreneurs. I'm inside her infinity, I should say, mastermind, and then I also do some one-to-one coaching with her. But today I've asked Jillian if, like, instead of us talking about sales so much today, but and going into the science of sales, because Jillian's out there. If you need to learn about sales, you can hop onto her podcast. You can, see her in all these different multi dimensions. Go into her Instagram. She's posting content up there all the time. But Jillian, if you're okay, can we just kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into you as an entrepreneur and your
Yeah,
business?
I actually love these conversations so much more because I've been on like hundreds of podcasts, and sometimes I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over on every podcast that I'm on. So when somebody's like, hey, can we go in a different direction? Can we go a little deeper? I'm like, hell yes, I'm totally here for that.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, the whole idea behind the X podcast too is I love to jump on, especially in my solo episodes, to talk about sort of some of the tactics, like how to overcome objections or like how to create a sales process or, how to do a business strategy plan. But I also want to make sure that the podcast is there for those entrepreneurs. Like I work with a lot of women coming from corporate, starting up their entrepreneurial journey, this sort of second half or second act of life and career and business. And so I want to talk to entrepreneurs about like, well, why did you become an entrepreneur and like, what do you love about it? So that's what the call is going to be about today. So if anyone's not interested, jump off now. But if you're definitely interested in learning about Jillian's background and why she chose entrepreneurship, then stick around. It's going to be a great story. So
Perfect.
Jillian, like I know that you've worked in corporate, you had sales roles, but like kind of tell us, give us a bit of a picture before you became an entrepreneur, what you were doing.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. From the small age of like 5 or 6 years old, I actually always wanted to be a police officer. That was my entire goal, like growing up,
Oh,
was like, I want to be a police officer. I want to go to the academy. I don't want to go to college. And that was really what I wanted to do. And that's exactly what I did. I finished high school. I joined the police academy, and I was a
no
probably
way.
like, yeah, I was probably like 3 or 4 months into the academy. And I was like, this is awful. Like,
Oh,
this is so hard. And I was also dating a police officer at the time. And I saw a lot of things like in the agency and things I just didn't like. I didn't really like how like the women carried themselves. I didn't like a lot of the stories that I heard, like broken homes, alcoholism, like
mhm.
all these things. And I remember saying like, I don't really think this is the path for me. And I was like, really small at the time. I was 5'1", like 100 pounds soaking wet at the time. And I was also like, I also feel like I'm probably going to get killed, like honestly, like
Oh,
very quickly into this. And it
yeah.
wasn't it wasn't like the path that I thought I needed. So I remember coming home telling my parents, like, I dropped out of the police academy. I'm not really sure what I want to do. And my dad was like, well, you have to get a job. Like, if you're out of the police academy, you're not going to go to school. You got to get a job. And I was like, okay. And he was like, the corporation that my dad's heavily involved in sales, he owns multiple companies. He was like, one of the companies that we are partnered with, he's like, they're looking for summer interns. Why don't you go in and see if you could like grab a spot as like a summer intern? I was like, okay, what am I going to do? My dad's like, it's a sales job. I was like, okay. So I went into this job as a summer intern, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, I could do this. Like, I just talk to people all day and like make money. And like, I literally felt like all I did all day long was like talk to people, have fun. And then like I got a paycheck. I was like, this is like the best job ever. And from the very first time I walked into that building, I want to like paint you guys a little story. I
Mhm.
was the only female in the entire organization since 1963. So here I am, 20 years old,
Wow.
coming in, smoking hot, 20 years old, changing like the entire face of like the company. And the company did not like me. They were like, we don't want a girl. We are old school boy club. Like, it was hardcore.
Hmm.
And I was just like, I'm gonna like make this work. And I told my dad, I said, at the end of the summer, like, I want to get a job and I want to work there. And I said, not only do I want to work there, but I want all of these men who are such assholes to me to work for me one day.
Oh my
I'll
God.
never forget that. I was like 20 years old. And my dad was like, that's like a really good goal, Jill. Like, try to get the job. And fast forward 25 years, when I left my corporate job, I was managing a sales force
Hmm.
of 217 men.
Amazing. Still with that same company or a different company?
It was a sister company, but in the
Oh,
same
wow.
organization. So it was food service distribution. I
Hmm.
worked for a very large distributor for the first 16 years of my company, 15, 16 years of my career, and then I went to a sister company.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Wow. And to set that goal for yourself at 20, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely am very goal oriented. It's how I've always been. And it was like, I just like had this goal and I was like, okay, I don't have it today, right? Just like entrepreneurship. I'm
Right.
not making a millions of dollars tomorrow. I don't have all the customers today, but it's like, that's the end goal. I just kept my eye on the prize
Yeah.
year after year, month after month, season after season.
And so all those men that you said, like they ended up working for you?
It all worked for me. Yep, 217 of them. And I had a great career. I always joke around like if I could have tattooed my company's name on my forehead, I would have. I was a ride or die in corporate America. So
Mhm.
I loved my job. I loved what I did. My pictures were on the wall. I had a beautiful corner office. Like I loved it. And then this thing happened called COVID.
Yeah.
And basically, the world started to shut down, and people that were being paid very well in our organizations were actually the first ones to go. I'll never forget, I came into my organization on a Monday. I literally like sat my stuff down. One of our VPs said, "Hey, can we see you in HR?" And I was like, "Yeah, like no problem." And I'll never forget, I sat down with my yellow legal pad and I was like, "Who do I need to let go of today?" And they were like, "Well, actually,
Oh,
it's going to be you." And I was like, "What?" Like, I don't understand this. And I remember like giving them the keys to my company car, giving them my laptop, turning in my office keys,
oh,
like the building,
yeah.
and sitting on the stairs at my company and being like, I don't even have a ride home.
Mm.
Like what do I do? And I called my dad, and my dad said something to me I'll never forget. He said, "Jill, go eat some Ben and Jerry's ice cream if you need to, cry, go binge some Grey's Anatomy for however long you need to. But I want to tell you something. We're very strong Christians in our family." My
Mhm.
dad said, "You have a God-given talent, and that is to sell. So it doesn't matter if you go down the street and be a realtor or you want to be the best bartender at the corner pub, you're going to be fine because you know how to sell."
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And then we can talk about what the journey looked like after that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, a significant turning point though, right? Like so, I mean, so many people, like you said, COVID happened and this, chain of events happened afterwards. It happened to lots of people around the world.
Yeah.
Um, so was that the turning point for you to go into entrepreneurship, or was there something else that took you
Yeah.
in that direction?
So that was actually what it was. And it was so interesting. I always tell this story. About a month and a half before that, I had a bunch of girlfriends that are in the entrepreneurial space. They're coaches, influencers, social
Mm.
sellers, network marketers, all the things. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to go with us to a mastermind in LA?" And I was like, "I don't even know like what a mastermind is." And
Yeah,
they were
what
like,
is that? Yeah.
"Chris and Lori Harder are hosting this mastermind." I was like, "I have no idea who these people are," right? Like they were name dropping all these people. They're like, "Hey, do you want to go to this mastermind?" And I was like, okay. And I was still in corporate at the time. So I
Hmm.
remember I spent $8,000 to go to this mastermind in LA. This is really important for the story. And I was in this mastermind, and everybody was an entrepreneur in there except me. I was the only corporate person. And we had to get up in front of the room and we had to say what we did. And I was like, "Hey, I'm Jillian Murphy. Those are my girlfriends in the back. I'm not sure why I'm here. I don't really fit in with any of you guys. You guys are all like talking on your Instagram stories and like you're actually kind of cringe. I work in corporate America. I love my job. I'm really just here for like 3 fun days in LA. So I'll see you guys soon." And that
Yeah.
was it. I sat next to Nick Harder at lunch, who is my mentor's brother. And he said, "What do you do in corporate?" I said, "I'm a sales trainer and a sales coach." And he said, "Do you know that like everybody in this room needs you?" And I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And it went in one ear and out the other. I
Hmm.
went home. I remembered I sat next to this guy. I didn't really remember his name. And when I left my corporate job and got fired from my corporate job, I was like, I'm in this mastermind. I've never even like attended a call. I think they have calls and stuff. I should probably go to one. And I got on a call and I said, "Hey, I haven't really been a participant in this mastermind, but I just lost
What,
my corporate job
yeah.
and
What are you
I
guys
think I need
doing?
to like figure out what I'm doing with my life." And
Right.
there was a girl on there. Her name was Raquel Quinnett, and she slid into my DMs and she was like, "I can literally help you build an empire."
Mm-hmm.
This is really important for you guys to hear. I had just lost a corporate job. I did not know what I was doing. I had no idea when I was going to actually make money again. I had just spent $8,000 on this mastermind that I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
I was like, okay, what does that look like? And it was just under $20,000. And I was like, look.
Gulp.
And
Yeah.
also at that point, I had no idea what people spent in the online space.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, I'm down. And
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that investment sped up everything because I didn't know what social media was. I didn't know what Instagram was. I didn't know how to create a TikTok. I didn't know how to create a reel. I had no idea how to do a story. Like I had no idea how to do anything. And she
Mm-hmm.
literally gave me all the tools. I could have invested in courses. I could have read the books. I could have YouTubed it. I could have done any of those things. But in 3 months, I had my first six-figure launch
Right.
and I almost replaced my corporate job in 3 months. So
Wow.
basically, I paid for speed and I paid for proximity. And I
Mm-hmm.
will tell you that that changed the trajectory of everything that I did.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Like the Nick Harder, like coming back and talking about like the salespeople all in the room. Like, do you now think back to on that moment? Because like at the
Yeah.
time you were just like, I don't know what this means in one ear, out the other. But now,
Yeah.
like, what do you think about that when you go into a room full of like,
Uh-huh.
business owners, etc.?
Yeah, I always joke around. Chris Harder's been my mentor for 3 years. And I'm always like, it's your brother that actually birthed my business, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always joke about that. But yeah, I mean, it was really also having somebody else see something in me that I didn't see,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like he was like, oh, this is what it was. And that was really the day that everything kind of changed for me. I will also say that like I came out of the gate and I was a bit of a unicorn. I came out of the gate. I was in a mastermind with 200 people. Everybody needed sales, right? So it wasn't hard to be like, hey, which one of you guys needs help in sales, right?
Right.
And this is what I always say too, like I sell something that everybody needs. So if I would have been, let's say, a mindset coach or a
Mm-hmm.
Reiki master or a healer or maybe even like a copywriter,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely would not be in the place that I'm in today. I'm sure I would still have a successful business, but I was so clear and concise of what I did. And literally every single business owner in the entire world needs me.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to tell people, like, yes, I came out of the gates blazing and I blew up very quick, but it's easy when you have a skill set that everybody needs. I'm
Right.
in network marketing and I suck at network marketing because like it's a very niche product, right? So it's like
Yeah.
when you sell something that's niched, not everybody needs it. When you
Right.
sell something that everybody wants, it's like get in line.
So when you think back to, okay, you're in this corporate job, because there's so many people that are going to be listening to this podcast. Like they're just sitting in their corporate desk right now, listening to this or on their drive home or sitting on a subway somewhere. And they're like, okay, well, what is that unique skill that I have? And
Yeah.
some entrepreneurs like just completely live their corporate life. Like I have a client that was a VP of HR, and now she is making like textile products and selling them at Saturday markets
I
like
love it.
locally, and she loves it, right? And that was a hobby of hers, and her friends just said go do that, and I've
Mhm.
helped her create this like six-figure business and get more ease in her life. And she's not doing the HR stuff anymore. But I mean, so some people will take what they were doing in their corporate career and then now commoditize that in their own business. And then some of them just do something completely different, like make jam.
Yeah.
What was there anything, any inkling for you, like in your corporate life that you were going to one day do this on your own, or like it was just like the series of events, the people that you got access to, that mentorship that led you down this
Yeah.
path?
Yeah, it really was. I really had like no desire to ever be an entrepreneur. I actually didn't really know what it meant. I mean, I guess I should say
Mhm.
like I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad owns like several companies. He's super successful, but even that looked corporate to me because he
Right.
went to a building, he wore a suit every day, he traveled, he carried a briefcase, right? So he did it. To me, that wasn't like entrepreneurial-ish. It was like he's going to work. He's going to a job, right? Like I was like, oh, my dad's going to work. Like I forgot that like his name was on the building. So it's
Hmm.
like I feel like no, I never really had an inkling for it. But if you're sitting here right now and you're listening to this podcast and you know that there's something more for you, these are the things that I always tell people. Number one is giving yourself enough runway in your corporate job or in your bank account to leave and have a plan, right?
Hmm.
I never want someone to like listen to this podcast and be like, oh my God, I'm so motivated by Jillian's story. I'm going to leave my 9 to 5 tomorrow. And
Right.
then it's like, okay, now we have to make money. It's like, make sure you're actually doing it smart. And then going back to like selling jam, right? Let's
Hmm.
say you're sitting on this call right now and you make 6 figures or $60,000 or $250,000. You really need to think about, okay, if I'm going to go pursue my passion and sell purses or jams or lotion or sweatshirts, whatever it is, what is that really going to be to bring in that type of revenue? Right. So, like using me for an example, like I'm a high ticket coach. It doesn't take a lot of people for me to replace a really good income. But if
Hmm.
I was selling water bottles or sweatshirts or jams, it would take me a lot longer of a runway to make up that income.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, cool. That's good for people to sort of
Yeah.
understand. But I think you said it, like, what is that runway for yourself?
Yeah.
And have that projection. Because I think all too often, like you were in a situation of a layoff.
Mhm.
In my situation, I left. So it was just kind of like, oh, now what? Right. And we both have like stories of like how we just like, got ourselves back up and
Yeah.
continued on. And that's great. But I think I always advise my clients too. Like if you can, if you're sitting in that corporate job and you have that, paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, to go cold turkey like I did can be a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah.
And I also had a bit of a cushion
Yeah.
through savings, et cetera, that I could take a year off and kind of figure some things out and,
Yeah.
ease into it. But not everybody's in that situation. So,
Yeah, no, and I think too, it's like this is also like the importance of mentorship. We know whether it's Brenda, myself, a mastermind community, a free group, whatever it is. Sometimes you don't even see the skill sets that you have. Other people see it
mhm.
inside of you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I have a girl. She's with me inside of my Infinity program. Her name's Crystal, and she came to me as a struggling network marketer. And within like the first 2 calls, I was like, you have such an innate skill to do this thing in the online space, but like you're over here in this box. And
Hmm.
because she was in it, she didn't actually see it. Now, fast forward 3 years, she's running a multi 6 figure, OBM agency. And I talk about her all the time because it was like sometimes you just say things like, oh, yeah, at my corporate job, I do bookkeeping, or, oh, yeah, in my past life, I ran a sorority or whatever. And it's like, oh, but wait, there's people that I know in my network that would absolutely pay for that skill, even though you think maybe you want to make jam or sweatshirts. It's like there's people that you could actually help with something else in your skill set.
Yeah. And even going back to my client, that's the, previous VP of HR, and now she's making bags. She knows that actually in her business model is to move away from that sort of full time. Like she's gonna, get manufacturers like to make her product, all that sort of stuff. So she doesn't have to do it. And eventually she's gonna coach makers on how to launch their business.
I love that.
And because she still has that business mindset and running teams and setting up logistics and working with operational groups from her corporate days. And so she's going to bring that over and she's going to expand her business out that way, which is like hugely inspiring. So I think that's it. If you are sitting right now, not even knowing that you could be an entrepreneur and you're sitting in your corporate job, maybe not feeling great about things, thinking about, oh, I have to stay here for the next 20 years until retirement.
Mhm.
Get into some type of mentorship group right now, entrepreneurship group. And it's difficult, I think, sometimes because there's YPO groups, so pay like $30,000. Like, can you afford that right now? But there are mentorship groups that are less, networking groups, like just being around other entrepreneurs can make a difference too. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that this group of people actually existed.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe you have the nudge on your heart to be an entrepreneur, but you're not even really sure what that looks like.
Yeah.
You're like, what are the struggles they go through? What are the challenges? It's like join something, get into a call and be like, oh, yeah, I really want this, or like I really not want this. I mean, yes, I love being an entrepreneur. It's been the greatest blessing in my life. But there's been lots of times that I've been like, shit, it would just be easier to go to work and
Right.
collect
And
a
get a
really nice
paycheck.
paycheck still and like not have these things, right? So it's like, don't also fault yourself if you also have those feelings as well, because we all have them.
Yeah, so actually I was going to get into that with you. Can you give us an example without, like we're just opening the kimono
Yeah.
a little bit further, but like what's been like the lowest point in your business
Yeah.
that you have like felt like, you know what, I just like this is it. I'm done. Like I just want to walk away from this. Or I also want to know what the highest point is, but I want to start with the low and then work to the high.
Yeah. So I actually want to share 2 stories first. again, I was really lucky because I came out of the gates like blazing, right? Like I was having these huge cash months. They were massively profitable. I only had one person on my team. I'm like, this is like the best thing ever. I mean, I was like, this is like, I'm like baller style, right? And then it literally came to a halt last year. It was in October, and it was like things just dried up all of a sudden. Like I remember reading this girl's post on Instagram, and she was like, if you once felt like your business was a faucet and leads were just coming in, all of a sudden it's been turned off, this post is for you. And I was like, okay, it's not just me.
Right.
And that was last October inside of my business. And I will tell you in full transparency, I was like, should I like get a job at Target? Like, should I DoorDash? Should I Uber? And I want to say like I didn't need to do those things, right? I have a lot of cash in the bank, but like our mind instantly goes there. Like, are people ever going to buy again? Is my program suck? Like, does my community hate me, right? Whatever it is. And at that point, I said, what I'm doing right now in my world is not working. I've always had a mentor. I've never, ever been without a mentor. And I said, I want to make a shift and I want to bring someone new into the business and I want to change things. And I sat down last October. I did not have any sales come in the entire month of October. I did not have any new sales coming in November. Now, I have set my business up to run very well on monthly reoccurring revenue. So when I say I didn't have money coming in, I still had a large amount of money coming in every month, not new sales.
Right.
So last November, I was like, I need to do something different. And I invested in a CEO. And just so you guys can understand, this was a 6-figure investment. So sitting with no new sales coming in, the lowest point inside of my business being like, hey, should I go work at Target? Maybe I should work at Uber.
Right. Now I'm investing in you.
Yeah, I made a 6-figure investment. And I made this investment watching his content for probably a week. We had a one conversation in the DMs and we had a FaceTime. And I was like, I'm in. Because one thing about me is I like speed and I like to go. And I also have an unwavering belief in myself. And I said, I will make this money back. Whether I have to go fold shirts at American Eagle or I have to, whatever it is, like
Right.
I will make this money back. And I invested 6 figures in the CEO. And that was in November. In January, we had our largest, second largest launch ever. It was $88,000. So we instantly basically made that back.
Right.
Okay. Like basically made it back. I had a couple other clients come in. He's given me some projects in itself. So by January, February, the money was made back. So I just want to say that like you can make an investment, and if you implement, integrate, and work it, you can also do it. Okay. Now we're going to fast forward to current times right now, today, August 12th or whatever today is, August 14th. I just had the second slowest month in my business that I have ever had. Okay. I did not bring in any new sales in the month of July. Now, again, I've set my business up really well. So I had a very large cash month last month, but I did not have a new sale in the month of July. So what do? I ask myself, where do I need to turn the faucet on and spend money? So last week, I made a $60,000 investment to now fix the problem, right? I don't have any leads coming in. No one's talking to me. It's like the well has dried up. So we hired an ad agency with a pretty substantial minimum to spend per month. And it's a minimum 6-month contract. So the reason I say this is not to share numbers, because maybe your number is $3,000 or it's $300 or it's $5. But the reason why I share this is I don't sit in the shit. I'm like, what do I need to do? So maybe you're sitting on this podcast right now and you're like, I don't know how to make sales. Go buy a $27 sales course. Maybe you're like, hey, I am trying to build this business and I don't know what to post on my Instagram. Go literally today, find someone to help you create Instagram, because what is true is the quicker you move and the more that you're in action, your body actually feels that. I have no doubt that we will make back this investment month 1. We'll have leads coming in. We'll close it. All I need to do is close like 10 leads inside Infinity and it pays for itself. But it's like, you just have to move and make decisions.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I would also say to people that are listening, because you and I have talked about this, and there's retreats out there, the mindfulness practice. And
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Like I've
Same.
learned about EFT tapping, I've taken meditation trainings. I love it. And I use those type of practices on the daily.
Mhm.
But there's a difference between clearing your mind and getting like, removing or reducing that level of anxiety and not taking action versus clearing the mind and then taking action. And what
Yeah.
you're talking about is taking action. Like you had to sit down, you had to assess things, you like, okay, this is not going. I'm sure in there you did some workouts, you walked the dog, like you
Yeah.
made sure you're eating right, sleeping right, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to make this investment. I'm going to make this shift in my business. But
Yep.
what I often see for people is we're using this sort of like mindfulness practice, go on a retreat, and then we're still not taking action in our business. And it's like
Yep.
6 months later, a year later, 2 years later. And we like that's a big cycle to have to turn around when we
Yeah.
haven't been taking action. So
Yeah.
what's your
It's so
thoughts kind of
true.
on that? I'm just kind
Yeah,
of
I mean
curious.
it's so true on that. And I just want to say this too. Like I have a CEO in my business and then I'm in a very high level mastermind. And
Mhm.
this is why it's also important to be inside community. Because as soon as I made that investment 3 days ago for this ads agency, I literally we have like a chat, a text chat. I said, what are some practices that I need to do now to sit with the uncomfortableness now that this money has gone out and nothing's coming in?
Mhm.
And I had people who said, like, this is what you need to do. This is what I would do for, breath work or meditation or moving your body or all these things. Because if I didn't have those people around me, I would literally sit here and spiral out of control.
Mhm.
Oh my God, I just spent this money. What am I going to do? That was a really irrational decision, like all these things. But because I'm in community and I borrow belief from other people, right? I'm like, okay, if I'm spending this on ads and they're spending this and it's working, like I borrow the belief from other people. So I
Right.
think that's also why community is so, so, so important. And I also think this is the thing. There's a lot of things that I want to spend money on. I would love to spend $60,000 on a lot of things,
Mhm.
$20,000 on a lot of things, $3,000 on a lot of things. But I ask myself always first, what does my business need?
Mhm.
Right? Does this just feel fun? Is it something that I want to go to, or is it something that my actual business needs right now? And if it's something the business needs and it's going to have a good ROI, then I'll do it. And
Right.
if it doesn't, then it's a full body no for me. I have
Mhm.
a lot of friends right now that are going to an event in Dallas in October, and it feels really fun. It's 4 days, it's in Dallas, it's all these things. It's my ideal clients aren't there, and it's actually like things I don't really want to learn about.
Right.
So it's like, what if I took that $2,000 and I spent it on a skill that I need?
Mhm.
Maybe it was like I learned more about copywriting. I learned about AI. I threw an extra $2,000 on ads. I gave my assistant a bonus because he's a rock star, right? It's like, what
Right.
else could I do with that instead of just doing things because it feels fun and feels really good?
Yeah. I love that. So, I mean, again, it's like taking a step back, looking critically at your business. But I love the point about when you're in community and maybe you don't necessarily believe something about yourself, but where can you borrow that belief until you get up the courage, the confidence, you start seeing that your actions are, getting the results that you want. So then you can believe it yourself and you know it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got another question for you though, because we
Yeah.
talked about the low points and how you've
Yeah.
overcome them. What's been like the highest point that you're just like, you know what, I need to like just sort of shine some light and just give myself some self-praise, and everybody on this podcast needs to hear it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I loved more than anything over the last 3 years in my business was I have built a really incredible community. Like I have built just like some really incredible raving fans. And I went to Arizona last year. I live here now, but I went here on a solo trip. And when I was here, I got a tattoo
Mhm.
and it said "Be Her Now" on my forearm. And when I got back, people in my audience started to like be like, "Oh my God, I love that! Like Be Her Now," and they started like hashtag it and all the things. And it's the thing, if you haven't learned this about me yet, I take very quick action. And I was like, what if I ordered like 50 sweatshirts that said "Be Her Now" and I like sold them to my audience? And to date, we've sold over 500 sweatshirts.
Wow.
And there's something that feels so good every single time I get on like a networking call or I watch somebody's Instagram stories or it's a reel and it's like, there's my sweatshirt, right? Like that is something like it just literally makes me so happy every single time I see them. And you guys, this is the thing. I made like no money on these sweatshirts. Like I sold
Yeah.
them for $55. They cost me 27. I was shipping them myself. I was going to the post office. Like We made no money on these sweatshirts.
Hmm.
It was truly like so like validating and fun for me. Every time someone bought one, I mean, I literally just sold 2 of them yesterday, and it's like, okay, this is literally probably costing me money because we're going to Canada. But
Yeah.
it's like I just love seeing people embrace the brand and do it, and then also seeing them when I like see them out in like the wild, as I call it. So
Yeah, and we were talking about that the other day, like being top of mind for people. So it's just another top of mind thing where it's like, yeah, it's
yeah,
sitting in my closet and it's like I look at it and it's like, oh yeah, Jillian, right? What's she up
yeah,
to? What's she doing? Right. So
it
it's just
makes me so happy.
it's a gentle nudge that way. Okay, one last question for
Yeah.
you. This is kind of like a dreamlike question. If I was to give you a billboard and you could put anything on it and it could be anywhere in the world, what would you put on it and where would it be?
I would probably put Be Her Now, and I would
Okay.
probably put it in my hometown. I live in a really small hometown, very small-minded thinking, very much like we just go to work and leave and all those things. And I always kind of felt like an outcast in my small town for
Hmm.
lots of reasons. Business, I always had a big business brain. I always did well in corporate. I was a fitness competitor. I was actually on some billboards. My hometown thought it was like so cringe. Like there was just a lot of things about me that like my my hometown kind of like steered away from with me. So I would love now to put it back in my hometown and be like, look at what I've accomplished.
Yeah, awesome. Jillian, where can people find you and what's something that's happening in the next like month, 2 months that people need to know about?
Yeah, so I'm really excited. You can follow me on Instagram at the Jillian Murphy. I put a ton of free content. Come over, say hello, slide into my DMs. If you're a friend of Brenda's, you're a friend of mine. Also, go over and listen to the podcast, Scale Your Sales Podcast. Brenda did an episode on there. So if you love Brenda, which I'm sure you do because you're listening to her podcast, go over and check out her episode and give it some love. And then depending on when this episode comes out, we are actually doing a 3-hour intensive workshop that I'm so excited about. It's basically called The Closer, and it teaches you how to become a more confident closer. It's $300, 3 hours. There's nothing in my world even close to this price point. So I'm really excited about it. And I literally think every single entrepreneur should be inside of it.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Jillian's been inside the Aligned AF community. She talked to, as a guest mentor, she's talked to my community and recently, and we did a whole session around sales, but also we got into closing. And that was just like 45, like 49 minutes, right, of content. And this is going to be 3 hours on closing sales. You've got to be there if this is an issue in your business. So
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me today on your show. I'm so insanely grateful for you.
thank you. Thanks to everyone listening. Take care, Jillian.